the next colleague is our guest speaker, Edzai, Zvobwo. I always wonder how do I pronounce it. Zvobwo.
Okay, only the Russians can pronounce it. It's Zvobwo.
Zvobwo. All right. He goes by being a mathematician, by being an author, researcher, but also a public speaker. And he's participated in these Da Vinci Roundtable discussions now for some time. And today he's going to discuss a very simple topic, and that's why the fuss about maths. So, Edzai, welcome you today. Great to have you here, and thanks for sharing your perspectives also on this important matter with us.
Sure.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Before I go into the math stuff, I just want to say, Reginah, when I think of Absa, I think of John Smith, I think of the Springboks. Now that there's Barclays, I don't know, should I think of Johnny Wilkinson or should I? So are you going to lose all the Springbok supporters? So you have to think about that. And then also just another perspective, I'm not sure how the human resource in Absa is. Are you sure that whatever has been implemented for customer retention and acquisition, are the players in Absa fit for the job? Or maybe you have a good policy on paper where you say this is the strategy, but does the strategy fit the players that are implementing? So yes, smile when the customer comes, but do the people in labs actually, can they smile? So think about that one as well from another perspective. So my name is Edzai Conilias Zvobwo, born and bred in Zimbabwe, Harare. I'm a maths genius. I'll explain why I'm a maths genius and what my definition of genius is. So it's unfortunate that by me calling myself a maths genius, you might think that I'm narcissistic, but I'll explain that no, it's actually humility. Yes. So I was privileged to go to very good schools in Zimbabwe, and the environment when we grew up from primary school up until high school was highly competitive. You had to come number one. You had to push. Success in academics was celebrated by the community. Neighbors, people in the community were all your parents. They pushed you to make sure that you succeeded, and if you didn't succeed academically, then there was something wrong with you. So you just had to, that was the kind of environment that I grew up in. So I came to South Africa in 2005 after I'd just finished my honors in maths from the University of Zimbabwe. And my first job was a teaching job in Pretoria. I taught high school. I lasted 6 months because I was deeply frustrated because it was a culture shock for me, because in Zim, the average school, you find that when you went into the class for algebra to learn equations, you were going to revise because we always strive to be ahead of the teacher. That was almost an unwritten rule in the type of schools that I went to. So when I came here now, I discovered that I, as the teacher, had to push the kids to at least follow. Even after the algebra lesson is passed, I have to go back and make sure that they are following through. So to me, there was a lot of culture shock, and also just on average, parental support was missing, and I didn't know why. I was very judgmental, and I said I cannot deal with this. I left. I went back to Zim, and then I went into, you'll never find it on my CV though, I worked in intelligence as a crypto analyst for a bit, but then you find that the environment was not so conducive because it was highly politicized. I thought maybe I'll be working in the CIA where I just sit and become a professional, but then Robert Mugabe and his people had other ideas. It was very partisan, so I left. I came back to South Africa. Now, when I came back, I wasn't a virgin in South Africa. Virgin in the education space, that is. So I started from a point of knowledge to say, okay, this is what I'm going into. So I taught at Midrand High School for 3 years. And there, I grew as a person, as a teacher, and also refined my philosophies, of which my philosophy of life is that self-reliance is higher than anything else. And if I premise everything I do on self-reliance, that means that things like capacity building, things like knowledge, things like effectively the idea of capitalism falls under that as well. So that is what I premise all I do on, the idea of self-reliance, right? So self-reliance, not just as an individual, but self-reliance even in a group setting. That is what drives me, right? So, and also I'm a firm believer in free thinking. And you find that in established institutions like the education system, for example, there is no room for free thinking where you actually can truly challenge the norm. So when I taught at Midland High School, I struggled to stamp my authority in trying to influence the outcome across the board. In my class, yes, I was king, and in my class, when kids came into my class, they knew that all the rules that apply in other classes don't. There was a big sign that says, there's 6 million ways to kill a cat, choose one, right? So that means that as long as you're obeying the laws of mathematics, if you come into this class, use whatever method you can, and I was pompous about it. I say, whatever method you choose, I will know it, use it, as long as you're obeying the laws of mathematics. So I tried to create an environment which was not prescriptive, but to try and harness the power that is in all of us to solve problems based on our experiences, to solve problems based on our perspectives, which are never going to be the same because we are different people. So that was very idealistic because it's in the setting of the formal education system, it's not sustainable because yes, the kids are going to do that, but then when they write the exam, the Department of Basic Education is going to say, use Pythagoras to find the value of x for this side. So my kids, if I taught them in grade 10 and they went to another teacher in grade 11, they always suffered because they were now under dictatorship when they were coming from a democracy. So that was a problem. So what I did was, I wrote a book. In fact, I didn't write it as a book. I was just writing as a manual to help the kids that I was teaching to say, okay, why are we studying maths? Because the average teacher, if you ask them, why are we doing algebra? They'll tell you because it's in the syllabus. It's compulsory. Or you'll use it later in life. Where, how? No one actually explains that to you. So I tried to show them the utility value of mathematics on a daily basis in their context, right? In their context, say, okay, this is how we use maths. This is how you use it on a daily basis. So I tried to incorporate that in my learning, and also I went back to basics and said, okay, what is mathematics? Because mathematics has always been given to us as a set of rules that cannot be bent, and it's all about crunching numbers. To us, that is mathematics. That is what we have always been taught, but that's not true. Mathematics is beyond that. That is just arithmetic. Otherwise, mathematics is the art of solving problems. Problems, whatever methodology you use, as long as it is in congruence with the axioms of mathematics, the backbone, the skeletal system of mathematics, then there's nothing wrong. In fact, mathematics should be the mathematics class should be a simulation of real life. Because what's the point of being taught, being asked a series of questions for 12 years, eh? From a very simple question to a very difficult question? What are they trying to achieve by doing that to us? A series of questions. In life, right? In life, our business is solving problems and making decisions. So, what we're supposed to take away from the maths class is the ability to use learned principles from either English, drama, design, wherever, to solve problems and make optimal decisions. You get it? So, mathematics, the arithmetic now is just a tool to solve problems. But now, if I take an average teacher and bring them here and just try and have this conversation, I tell you, I'll be talking to myself, and I've tried it on many occasions. So those are the fundamentals that we're missing in mathematics. Now, the question is, why the fuss about mathematics? But before I answer that, now, the reason why I call myself a maths genius, I'm not actually a maths genius. If you give me a maths problem, I will solve it. I can assure you I will solve it. But I won't solve it as fast as you want me to. You get it? I will solve it. I will find a method. If it means I have to stand upside down until I get the answer, I will get it. You get it? But genius, let's go back to the Renaissance age or the industrial age, way back. You find that genius is something that has been made to be something esoteric, something that is exclusive to reclusive white men who have a God-given gene that is inaccessible to anyone else in the world. Because if you think of genius right now, think of a genius. I know who you're thinking of. You think of this old man with that German, right? You know, that's a typical idea of genius, right? Of which that's a fallacy, right? Genius to me is the ability to solve problems, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're a transsexual. As long as you can solve problems, then that's genius, right? So mathematics in its constructs is about solving problems and enabling us to make business decisions, career decisions, and to be able to think in a logical, structured manner, right? So that's why I call myself a genius, because I strive to solve problems. Now, why the fuss about maths? Mathematics should be the lab to train us to be the best we can be at solving problems, right? At solving problems. Now, what qualities are we expected to get out of a maths classroom? First of all, the difficulty of mathematics is real. If anyone here is telling me that they've never encountered a difficult maths problem, then I will gladly Christian you a liar, right? Because mathematics has got different degrees of difficulty, and the whole idea is you're supposed to gain resilience. Resilience is one characteristic that you're supposed to learn from the maths class. And resilience is a necessary skill in life. Right? Secondly, after resilience, the structure in thinking. Because you find that in 1946, the Hungarian mathematician by the name of George Polya came up with the skeletal system. He gave a 4-point step method where he said, first of all, understand the problem. After understanding the problem, devise a plan. After devising a plan, carry out the plan. After carrying out the plan, then evaluate. Now you find that most of the kids in our schools don't take time to understand the problem. That is the biggest challenge. And if there are any business analysts in here, they will tell you that the most critical thing in the whether it's software development life cycle or other areas, analysis phase is the most important. Otherwise, you're going to solve the wrong problem, right? I'll give you a classic example. I asked kids in a class to say, get a number, right? So we'll call that X. That X, yes. Right? So get a number, double it, add 5, and the answer is equal to 10, right? So, to me, doubling is what? Multiplying by 2, right? So I didn't know that in the townships, there's something slang called double up. So double up means shortcut. So half the kids in the class actually divided by 2 because they thought that doubling up means making smaller. So to them, they understood the concept of multiplication and division, but because of a language issue, they suffered. So it means that already there was a communication breakdown. So understanding the problem is critical. Just like when solving any business problem or any problem in life, whether it's with a spouse, whether it's even this xenophobia issue, right? If people had sat down to actually drill down and critically think what the problem is, I don't think the problem was the foreigner. The problem was other things, hunger included, right? So they prescribed the wrong solution to the problem because they didn't invest enough time. Right. Okay, so that's me coming up, rushing to a conclusion, but I don't know what the problem was anyway. So once you understand the problem, I go out and I teach kids to say, how do you understand the problem? Right? If at your house you've got 5 Ferraris, when a question is asked, x plus 2 equals to 5, don't think of it as a mathematical sentence like this. Think of it in your own context, in your reality. Right? Okay, so some Ferraris plus 2 Ferraris equals to 5 Ferraris because Ferraris are what is in your reality. If you sell oranges, think in terms of oranges. Think in terms of something that you can relate to. Right? Something that you can relate to. Contextualization is one of the most important things. So in understanding the problem. So that is important. Then once you've understood the problem, you go out and devise a plan. Now, devising the plan in mathematics is saying, okay, we've learned all these formulas. Which one is the best formula to use? Right? That's like in business analysis, software development life cycle, right? You've done the analysis. First of all, you're given the business requirements by the client. You do the analysis. You do feasibility studies and all that. And then you've got a recommendation of what? Of either one or many methods that you can use. That's now one of the biggest bottlenecks in the pipeline or the mathematics learning course, where you find that teachers are prescriptive. They'll say, use my method or the highway. And then can I tell you something? OBE was great. That was one of the best systems ever, right? OBE was supposed to encourage inquiry-based learning, right? Where the kids are actually the sources of knowledge, with the teacher being the facilitator. But the problem why it didn't work in South Africa is because we set a formula for the wrong players. Our teachers were not capacitated to be good facilitators. Because to be a good facilitator, you actually have to have background knowledge as well. So the facilitation skills were not there. That's why OBE failed, and also it was just media pressure. But otherwise, it wasn't given enough time. And now, CAPS, the new curriculum that has come, is the worst system ever. I have aired my concerns to relevant parties through some channels that I have for lobbying, because you find that it's highly prescriptive. Right now, there's no room for learning with CAPS, because CAPS will tell you that Monday, 10 February, you're going to do equations. Tuesday, you're going to do trigonometry. It's independent of whether there was learning or not. If you want to come up with an innovative strategy of teaching that, you can't, because you are just racing against some timelines, some milestones. So the effects of CAPS, we shall actually witness them in 5-6 years to come, but unless they rectify them as soon as possible. So in devising the plan, you find that there's too much prescription, right? Too much prescription such that we kill all the other learning methods that are inherent in our kids, because our kids now learn differently. I'm telling you, give a phone to a 5-year-old, they'll do stuff that you can't do. And the idea of the teacher being the source of knowledge has been nullified. Because if you look at, say, for example, the business model of Google, Google just came up with a platform, right? And their value, right, is derived from people plugging in. We are the ones who are adding value to Google by adding information on a daily basis. They just created a platform. Facebook doesn't post any updates or photos. We are the ones who are adding value. That's the same, it is co-creation of value. Now you find that the current math classroom is such that we expect the teacher to be the fountain of knowledge, dissipating into the kids, and that is a pipeline thinking, not platform thinking, and it's not relevant in the current day because you find that information is readily available online. It's about facilitating the assimilation and understanding of that information. So the model, the learning model in mathematics has to change totally. That is very important. And then, what good is a plan if it's not carried out? So we have to carry out, that's when you try out the different methods and see if you come up to the right answer. But now you find that in the exams, when Umalus is doing their reviews, they see that the kids had an idea, but they made a mistake. They put a plus where they were supposed to be a minus. But then they didn't take time to go back and evaluate to see if that, So it's a time management issue as well. So the evaluation is very, very important. Right. So how am I trying to add value to mathematics education in South Africa? With all these philosophies of mine where we are saying, let's revitalize the learning environment, let's come up with new models. What are my solutions? What is my contribution? Okay, so I've written 5 books to date. The first one is The Mathematical Genius in You, where it's motivational in nature, and I just say, why do we study maths? What is it that those who succeeded in maths, what is it that they did? Where are you mathematically? What are the tips? What are the tricks? How do you think like a maths genius? And I give those examples and also say, what is beautiful about mathematics? So I give fascinating facts and all that, but it's motivational in nature. And then the other books are heavily skewed towards girl-child empowerment because that is something that I didn't plan to go into, but I found myself there because in my exploits, I've realized that the rural girl and the township girl have got the least probability of success, especially when it comes to mathematics and science, because you find that they have to fight cultural prejudices, they have to fight teachers that are not gender responsive in their approach to teaching mathematics, and just general societal issues. So I have taken it upon myself to say, okay, so the low-hanging fruit for true progress in mathematics education is to empower the girl child, but not neglecting the boy child, because we don't want to tip the scales in such a way that 10 years from now we'll be empowering the boy child because the boy child is forgotten. Is forgotten, yes. So I'm trying to push for girl child empowerment. So what I do now, my activities at Maths Genius Leadership Institute are divided into 3 functional areas. The first one is information dissemination. I am that mad guy who will take up any platform to talk about maths. I have been in churches talking about maths. I have been at conferences worldwide talking about maths. Innovation conferences, I go and say, maths is important for innovation. I go and try and push and lobby for us to give the attention that is due to mathematics, right? Because mathematics is not necessarily the holy grail of innovation, but it is something that we can harness and use as a basic structure, as a basic framework for design thinking, right? For project management, business analysis, optimization, programming, the thinking that is behind mathematics is what's important. It's not about the crunching of the numbers that is fundamental. Because nowadays, we have computers, we have machines that can crunch numbers. The question is, can you interpret that? Can you manipulate it and play around with the variables for it to make sense, right? Even that predictive model, there are tools that are there already. I know insurance is using that quite a lot, where you can actually do the churn. Okay, look for the generalized linear models, you'll find them. You can use that, GLM, okay. Right, so information dissemination is the first one. Then training. I go around training teachers in schools just on how to make maths fun, how to extract the genius out of the kids, for them to get out of the box of this traditional maths learning, you get it? So I try and help them, capacitate them. I don't want to lie, South Africa is still a long way when it comes to maths education, because you find that if you go into the townships, you go into the rural areas, you'll hear sad stories. One that really touched me was when I went to this school in Mamelodi, and the teacher clearly, right, was teaching up to grade 12, but her competence was less than grade 9 herself. And then I asked, how are you teaching maths? He says, you know what, let me tell you, my brother, I am not a maths teacher, but the principal hates me so much that she gave me maths. Can you see? That's gambling with kids' lives, right? We're saying that if you're the most hated teacher by the principal, you go teach maths. So it's actually a punishment, you get it? And that's sad. Imagine how many kids are actually passing, how many cohorts of learners are passing through that teacher, and what's happening to them. And we expect those people to contribute meaningfully in the economy. We expect them one day to be sitting here at Da Vinci talking about PhDs. Is that possible? Right? So we train teachers, we try and capacitate them, we train even parents. I've held a number of activities where I bring in parents to say, how do you support your child mathematically? Even if you are not mathematically sound, you are the worst person at maths, you can channel your child's thinking through you can channel your child's thinking through asking questions, asking the right questions. A maker will ask his child, have you understood the problem? Have you devised a plan? Have you, asking questions that will lead to the answer. Those kind of questions that you as executives in your companies ask your employees to come to solutions, those are the same questions that you should be asking. It's not about, do you know how to calculate yourself? You get it? Yeah. So it's about the thinking. Right. So then there's a support system now. You find that I've gone in even as far as sponsoring the Maths Olympiad. I co-sponsored with SASO last year. I'll be sponsoring again this year. Okay, when you're sponsoring, I know you think big money. I just give them books, that's all. Right. And then also training teachers. Because you find that now, if you look at the Maths Olympiad that occurred last year, we had South African representatives were 5 boys, right? 4 white boys from Cape Town, one Indian boy from Durban, right? And that is really representative, right? It's not, right? Because you find that the Western Cape as a province is the only one that focuses on Olympiad training. In Olympiad, mathematics is is mathematics that teaches you higher order thinking, which you cannot get in the schooling system. And if we can actually proliferate the benefits of Olympiad thinking into the rural schools, we might actually come up with something. But the problem is, the teachers themselves, if you give them those Olympiad questions, they can't do them. They don't know more maths questions, you know that. Olympiad, I don't know if anybody has done the Olympiad, Maths Olympiad. Yes. You know that you...
I trained him.
Oh, brilliant. So we should talk. Yes, definitely. So, all that stuff. We need to make sure that we capacitate our teachers to be able to teach. Because if they can't, then we're doomed, right? Now, one thing that I believe we can start without spending money, lots of money, is coming up with a culture of individual social responsibility. Right? In South Africa, there's a new Christmas called Mandela Day, where you take your 67 minutes, you go paint a wall, or you go give whatever, and you go away. But Mandela Day only is not enough. It's a good start, right? Imagine taking 67 minutes every week, or 67 every month, teaching some child who is not your biological child, teaching them some concept of mathematics, not just mathematics, even other subjects, right? Because you find that the support structure outside the schooling system is dead. We have legacy issues here. The pan here, this is legacy, right? This group, yeah. So you find that we have legacy issues where there's a void. Our parents cannot support our kids because they themselves are illiterate. So it will take upon us, the enlightened ones, to go out there and actually roll up our sleeves and help them. Who can teach grade 1 mathematics here? Me too. Right. So you know something, right? You're going to be using, if you're using quantitative, you're going to be using lots of statistics. You can go teach math literacy statistics. You can go teach the financial part. You can go teach. There's something that you can teach someone. So that means that we have to encourage individual social responsibility, because those kids are going to be a burden to us as well. If we say, let's have a laissez-faire attitude where we only concentrate on our kith and kin, right? So that is important. Individual social responsibility, that is what I preach wherever I go, because that is one of the basic needs for us to be a knowledge economy, knowledge society. Yes. Right. Then, the other thing is that I spoke to, she doesn't want to be called Doctor, Minister Naledi Pandor. I spoke to her recently. It was a personal attack, but she took it well. I told her that one of the worst programs that has ever been implemented by the Department of Education is the Dinaledi project. Do you know how much they spent so much money with Dinaledi projects, where they had these specialized maths and science schools? You know them, right? But the monitoring and evaluation that was done found that they did not have an impact. One of the mining giants in the Northwest as well did a huge project for 5 years, and also it was found that the benefits from that were negligible. So it was a sustainability issue where you go into a school, you give them resources, you do whatever, but you have not changed the culture. I don't know, someone mentioned culture earlier on. You have not changed the culture of learning. So that means that all you're doing is being a Father Christmas who's just giving out resources, iPads, and all those things, but you're not changing the fundamental thinking of the people, right? So, I believe that, among other things, every intervention in the schools cannot succeed if it's not community-wide. And it ties in with the individual social responsibility that I've mentioned, right? So community-wide. Now, the Dinaledi project treated the schools as islands where they just focused on teachers and pupils. But then, once the teacher and the pupil are out of that enclosed environment, what are they hearing? What is being fed to them? And that is what actually matters. Because the 30-minute lesson is not where the maths is passed, but it's outside the lesson. That is the most important. That follow-up work is the most important thing. So that's one of the major drivers why the Dinaledi project was a failure, because it was not comprehensive. It was not cross-cutting. And it did not try and harness the skills that are available in the community, right? Because you find that the amount of money that government is investing in every one of us, right, when we go through the schooling system, there is no return on investment, except when you're directly linked to the education sector. Because when you're at Absa, you're concentrating about customer acquisition and all that, but are you giving back to the education system directly? So somehow we should try and find ways of tapping into that brain of yours and making sure that it trickles down to the child in Alexandra. I don't know how. I have a simple solution. I have come up with a question and answer portal, which the SABC wants to latch on, but I don't know if I should go ahead with them because it might just die a natural death. It's a question and answer portal where you're free to ask those questions, like, why do we study maths? What careers? All those questions, even with question papers, anything to do with maths, it's a liberal kind of, user-driven portal. So that's the one that I've come up with. It was just a pet project, but now I have to maybe give it to SABC to use on a contract basis or sell it outright. But selling outright, I know it's not optimal for the nation, right? And also, the other thing is that the Department of Education has no idea who is doing what in the education space, the maths education space, right? You find Professor Benny is teaching kids in Alex every Saturday, but no one knows what he's doing. So there's no central repository of any sort of the activities that are going on, such that we can actually measure our progress. Because you find when the World Economic Forum report came out, did you see what Minister Angie did? He said, that report is just perceptions of business people, and she stopped there. That is not value adding. Because you're supposed to say, that report is useless. I have empirical evidence. Here is the evidence. But they had nothing to show. Those are just political statements which don't help anyone. So we need to be able to tell the South African story based on empirical evidence, based on all the interventions that are happening. I'm telling you, we're pouring so much money. 6% of GDP is going into education in South Africa. But we're not realizing the results. Why? Because we are a nation that throws money at problems as opposed to encouraging resourcefulness, as opposed to giving resources. If kids in Uganda who have one textbook and are learning under a tree can be able to pass Cambridge O-level and A-level and be able to make it at the Ivy League schools in America, then are we sure that we're saying resources are the problem in South Africa? Do we really need to be delivering textbooks every year? What's happening? Are textbooks perishable? What's happening? It's those little things. We could be using that money for other things, right? So this is me being passionate about education reform, and I use any method, any platform, any means. I've even sung math songs. If you go online, you'll find my songs. I've written songs. I have a regular column with Biz Community where I post about maths, about anything. I use anything. And the good thing now is that through my madness, through my noise, my controversy, I don't introduce myself in a lot of places now. People call me, and that is good. Now, we need to leverage on that to actually get sustainable change. But now, as an island, as a one-man gang, that won't work. We need a collective voice. So I'm hoping that I have recruited ambassadors for mathematics who are going to sing math songs, who are going to do math poems, who are going to say that maths can be done, because that's the most important thing. We are telling our kids that maths cannot be done. By the time they get to grade 1, they know that it's socially acceptable to get 30% in maths because mother knows that maths is difficult.
30% in
Math. I'm not even considering the fact that they've got coursework, which accounts for 25%. That's the truth. And by the way, let me tell you this. This is saddening actually, but that's what happens in these schools. How much time?
We've got another 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So you find that when kids do their continuous assessment, right? The coursework, they got it. There's a lot of manipulation in schools that happens there, right? And then they write maybe their end of year, grade 11, for example, right? They write those marks. The teacher moderates. You know, there's pre-moderation. You moderate because there's a rule that not more than 10% should fail. Then you take it to the HOD. The HOD looks and says, why are the marks like this? Right? There's an adjustment. Then you take them to the deputy principal responsible for academics. They will further adjust. Then I had the privilege of taking our grade 11 marks to the department, the district office. I got there and I was asked, why does this child have 29? We'd already adjusted several times. We had to adjust. So moderation, yes, moderation is contextual. Every country moderates, but there should be boundaries, there should be ethics, there should be principles guiding this thing. So you find that, yes, we'll come out on TV and say we've got a 76% pass rate. But if you look at the... Yeah, I adjusted 5 times. And if you look at the level of knowledge of those kids that are holding that matric paper, it's not commensurate with their marks. That's why you find as employers you have problems where kids come now, they have no clue what's going on, but they have got A's in their subject. So my point is, let us promote maths for structural thinking, maths to build resilience. We don't want to be a society that gives up easily and uses the shortest route possible, right? Let us be our own architects of problem of solution. Oh, no, wait. I really rehearsed this statement. Wait, right. Let us be the architects of all our solutions. Let us be solution oriented, right? So much that this should be a cultural thing. I think the other day I mentioned about the Kaizen method. Lean Six Sigma, right? You know that stuff. The Japanese way of life. That thing is ingrained from childhood. Those kids can think before they get to school. By the time they're doing the numbers, right? They can already think. They can already reverse engineer an iPhone. They can already program their own calculator. They can already, they are solution oriented. Why? Because Japan has had generations of mathematically savvy people. So there's this robust support system, which is not here, which is not available in South Africa. So we can't copy and paste the system in Japan because it's working and use it here, or take representatives to go to Finland, because Finland right now has got the best mathematics education system. In fact, do you know that kids in Finland don't write exams until they're 16? They learn McKinsey style, case studies, real life problems. That's what they do. Kids in primary school will be solving a water problem in Africa. You get it? They're just given the necessary tools to be able to solve that, and they do it. Now, of all the systems, the best way of harnessing this McKinsey style thing, and if we can be able to implement it in South Africa, is using what are called hackathons. I don't know, those in the IT industry would know them. Hackathons. Yes. Right? With hackathons now, what you do is, okay, that's how Google, Facebook, when they want to come up with a new functionality, they get all the best brains from all over hackers and all that, bring them together, right? But you don't have to be a programmer. You can be a project manager. You can be a marketer. You can be, so they get a diverse team and put them in a room, give them lots of Red Bull and say, guys, this is the problem, see, and they lock the door and say, see you tomorrow. By the time they come tomorrow, there's a solution. That means that they worked collaboratively, they ganged up on a problem. And that is true learning. Because Professor Benny cannot program, but he's got the strategic thinking. Right? Reginah can program, but she doesn't have the strategic. So she concentrates on what she can, but also learning from Professor Benny, right? So it's important that we understand our context and come up with solutions that really work. So I hope you're sold out. I hope that I have ambassadors. I hope when I meet you next, when I greet you, you're going to be like, I'm a maths genius. I don't want to be the only genius. It's so isolated out here. So please, I need company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for that very inspirational sharing. And I know there may be questions, but I'm almost going to ask somebody from the Department of Education to just thank you for being with us today.
That's good.
So Shirley, if you don't mind, maybe you just want to make some comments and closure, and thanks.
I'll do that. I work for the Department of Higher Education and Training, and my boss is Vladimir Zamandi. And I must say, I agree with you about CAPS. It's dumbing down everybody. There's a reason for CAPS which we need to attack. There's also other curriculum reasons. Did you know that up until 2007 you had higher grade, standard grade, lower grade? 2008 onwards they removed all of that, and we've got the National Senior Certificate in the curriculum, of which 30% comprises lower grade, 50% comprises standard grade, and only 20% comprises higher grade. So when you get 10 distinctions today, in my day, you might have got half a distinction. So there are those issues, and I really, really like that, what you've said about encouraging people to think for themselves, the role of a teacher as a facilitator. I want to give you some comfort, however. There are some of us that are quite, also a little bit mad. Too much learning has made us mad sometimes, you see. And there are some of us who are a little bit mad in the Department of Higher Education and Training. And I have colleagues who've looked at these very things that you're talking about, not specifically maths, but the issues of problem solving. How do we do it? That you don't have a teacher on Monday, you do trick, Tuesday you do, well, tricks not even compulsory. But to look at the training of educators, to look at what we do in the classrooms from a teacher perspective, training of teachers. We have a challenge, however, and maybe that's a great PhD topic. How do we get the higher education institutions who hold on to the holy cow of institutional autonomy and Senate discretion to also embrace a different way of thinking? But thank you very, very much. I think that's the message that you brought, the social, everyone having a social responsibility, all of that. I think is, last year we went with Blade and Zamandi to Seven King and cleaned up rubbish dumps. And maybe we should have done rubbish dumps in Seven King every week for a year. But not just doing it, but bringing people along with us to show them why and how. And I think that's part of your message. Not just doing it, but bringing people alongside you, building the team, showing them how, teaching them to fish rather than giving them the fish. So thank you very, very much. You have certainly sparked off a lot in my head that I will certainly be taking back to some of the colleagues. There's a new policy for teacher training, by the way, that Dr. Whitty Green has just pushed through a process after public consultation. And you might find that very interesting to have a look at the focus changing of teacher education to make them more of a facilitator rather than just following the scarcely CAPS dumbing down process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just two last matters. I just want to remind you again that Da Vinci has got this book on leadership principles reflected in nature, and they are for sale. Many other people have already ordered them, but I just want you all to know about it. And you can place these orders at store if you want any of these. It's a story about nature and themes of leadership, Darlene. Great corporate gifts, you know, Absa and all those colleagues of yours. But it's a great read. And then just from my side, I don't know if you've solved this problem before.
It's a mathematical
Okay.
So I think, do you know what the gift is?
No.
This is a Da Vinci gift. But it's a problem that you have to solve.
Okay.
Now usually people take and then they send me on WhatsApp how long did they take to solve this problem.
Okay.
But he must do it upside down.
But
So
now-
maybe
Okay, so sorry, can I?
just make sure it's intact.
Can we, Professor, really challenge him to do it in front of us?
Yeah, that's what I want to try.
So I'm going to take this challenge, but now I'm going to take Professor Benny head on. You see, this is the problem.
Must I solve another problem?
If speed was a measure of ability,
No, it's not speed.
then India would have been the best maths country. They use Vedic maths, they can calculate logs in their heads, but that's just regurgitation of information. So the idea is, did you get to the solution?
So what we will
So-
do, You can have the whole afternoon.
Okay.
There's drinks and eats outside.
That's better.
And you can relax here. And the moment when you solve the problem, you can let us know.
All right. I'll take
I
that.
think the quickest time thing, although it's not important, was a BCom student who took 7 minutes.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't under 1 minute, baby.
She didn't want.
But you didn't
It's
share
one.
that with us.
No, but why?
Okay, well then she did it in 1 minute.
In 1 minute.
But she's a PhD of
7
divinity.
seconds.
No, I just
She's good enough.
figured it out.
So thank you very much. Here's the gift.
Thank you.
But you must solve the problem for us.
No, I'll do that.
Thank you very much. If you don't want to scare him, he will work here and he will advise us once it's done. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thank you. Right. Thank you, man.
But I sense they're not going to leave you. You'll have to solve it.
I'm going to go into the corner.
Okay.
Well done.
I'll still call you.
All right, okay.
I've got you.